Well, last time we left you in Stirling, we had been up in the old town, and we had been in one of the cemeteries, and there's the rock. Climbed up to get a view of all the stuff round about us. And today we're going to have a walk along the back walk. We decided to come to this part here, which contains the Queen's Knot and the King's Knot. Let's go and have a look at them.
This park was part of a formal garden that was built for Charles I. And this part of it is the Queen's Knot. Don't really know much about it. It doesn't say anything about it anywhere. We do know, a wee bit further on, I'll tell you exactly what that is in the distance behind me.
Hope this isn't slippy. Here we are, almost at the middle of the King's Knot, which doesn't really look like much of a knot, but I suppose it's a different kind of knot. And then, of course, the back walk is over there, over in that direction. And there's a nice backdrop of the Trossachs with snow cap, and unfortunately, kind of miserable looking Queen's Knot down there. I think the Queen's been a bit disgraced with that one. But in case you're unaware, this entire section of the grounds is the remnant of a formal garden originally created for Charles I in 1629-ish, and all that remains is the earthwork. No solid structures, just dirt and grass. As we're making our way down to the start of the back walk, check out these buildings. Absolutely fantastic. This is the magnificent Hotel Coliseo, would you? Take a night or two in there, yakking unicorn.
Aye.
Not going in, but I bet you it looks fabulous. I would love a night in there, that's for sure.
I can see a nice chandelier in the front door, so that's a good sign.
It's very nice, isn't it? Oh, this one's closed off. Could I buy it? Yeah, will somebody give me the money, please? Thank you. Here we are, Corn Exchange. Look at that for a piece of architecture.
Apparently the building was erected in 1878, does say on the side, and the store established in 1878, so I don't know whether that's the Corn Exchange or just whatever was there before.
Unicorn?
I was just looking at this lovely example of Gothic stroke Victorian era architecture, even that, which is actually the public library. And yet another wonderful example of the architecture of this old town of Stirling. This is the municipal buildings, and the foundation stone for this building was laid by King George V, who, I don't know if you know, he was the father of Queen Elizabeth II. And there are lots of sort of like little shields and obviously figures. And this two in the middle, yak, or is that? It's a little
Like a monk, probably.
a knight with big sword. It's like chainmail. It's as if he's like chainmail on, and a monk or a friar or something.
This is Campbell Bannerman, an Empire's tribute, it says at the bottom. We don't know anything about him.
1836 to 1980 when he last went.
Sweden, where that statue is, this is South Africa, an Empire's tribute. So I would imagine that's back to when
Something to do with the British.
the British Empire, when Africa and India and things like that were all still part of the British Empire.
We'll try and find out a wee bit about it.
Commonwealth.
And here we have a statue of Rob Roy.
A man we've talked about many times.
Many times. He was born at Glengyle and baptised on the 7th of March 1671. He died at Beheading on the 28th of December 1734.
He quoted, "My foot is on my native heath and my name is MacGregor," because he was MacGregor in spite of them, as he said himself.
Presented by Adam McGregor, Vicar of Kilmarnock.
The great grandchild of this famous Scotsman.
So there you go, Adam McGregor.
Reflecting on the history of the Stuart monarchy and expressing his Jacobite sympathies, Burns wrote Stirling lines here.
Well, here we are. We're on the back walk at long last. We should see some stunning views along here. It is clearly signposted, and you'll forgive me, I'm using a wee note sheet here. The wooden carvings installed along the route, there's lots of them here, are based on stories from the area's rich and colourful past. And these were supplied by staff at the Stirling Smith Museum and Art Gallery, which I think is maybe 200 or 300 yards along that way, which is where we're going. And firstly, you will see the wood carving of a wolf and a small winding path that will take us uphill. It's uphill most of the way. And around Stirling Castle, enjoying rich Scottish history, including a place called Gallow Hill. Now that one is a belter, by the way. Wait till you hear about this when we get there.
This walk was built between 1724 and 1791, and the back walk is regarded as one of Europe's finest urban walkways. It's the oldest publicly maintained road in Scotland, and as the bear mentioned, it encircles the old city walls up to Stirling Castle. You can travel around the base of the castle rock and even go up to the old town.
I'm looking forward to this. Oh, Unicorn Jack, I don't know about you two. I really fancy a pint of Belhaven right now.
That is one of your favourite views.
Terrible with it.
It's got a roof terrace.
It's called the City Walls, yes. It's got a roof terrace.
Mm.
Well, not today.
But not today. They're also dog friendly.
Isn't that nice?
So you can take your dog in.
You know what else is friendly?
What?
The residents of Stirling.
Very much.
Not
so.
a single one walked into our shot there on the bench.
Look, Jack. The reverse 4. That's from all of the merchants and tradesmen
Yes.
that used to live, work, got buried here in Stirling.
I would assume it's something more to do with stonemasons.
If you read it, it says John Cohen.
Aye, John Kerr.
I know Cohen's Hospital.
Back walk. It's signposted, they weren't kidding.
And there's John Knox.
And the Unicorns wants to prattle on about their history while I'm trying to make a joke about a signpost.
This is a statue, the wooden carved statue of the wolf. Now, according to local legend, if it hadn't have been for the wolf, then Stirling would never have been today, because what happened was back in the 14th century, the Vikings, as Vikings do, had decided they'd set their sights on the little bit of Stirling where the Cumbrian prince and princess were in residence long before this even got established. And they crept up during the night to where this was. And in the dark, they stood in a wee wolf cub's paw. And this wee wolf cub obviously yelped for its mother. And then the mother barked for the dad. And then the whole wolf pack came. And this noise alerted the prince and the princess, who obviously put on their armour and came rushing out, ready to fight the long-haired ruffians, as they called the Vikings, or whatever it was. Hairy monsters, I think, was one of the things. But they were then met with the scene of these Vikings fleeing in fear because the whole wolf pack was chasing them. So, there you go. This was way back in the 9th century.
Piggybacking off of what the Unicorn was saying, subsequent to the wolf incident, the wolf became associated with Stirling wolves in general and was therefore incorporated into the Stirling coat of arms and can be seen displayed on various coat of arms across the city, including on the Wolfscraig building in the Martin Road. That bin is very shiny, it's piercing my retina. Oh, can you look at it? There's plenty of benches and other such things for people like Unicorn to have a seat with, but we've brought our own as per usual. pleasant, in fact.
That's pleasant. Move slow down and walk. That's the time up for yourselves. If you come here, you can hammer up if you want and burst into a sweat. The good thing there is if you take a bike with you and run up holding the bike, you can hammer it down on your bike, down to the pubs in there and get yourself a nice pint of Belhaven.
To refresh yourself with.
And on a sunny day like this, you could sit in the roof terrace.
I think the beer's funding for a pint of beer there.
I think it is, yeah.
Pint of beer, please.
A pint of beer.
The beer's wanting a pint of beer.
Mm-hmm.
This is nice. This is really nice.
We don't need such things, but we have Iron Brew 1901. Now in 2 litre bottles.
Yes,
Wow.
indeed. Now in 2 litre bottles, if you can find one in your local.
Bar, I'm looking at you. Sponsor us, Iron Brew, we love it, please. Scotland's other national drink, try it if you haven't.
This part comes up from the Smith Museum and Art Gallery, is that what it's called? You can come up the steps or you can start from the path like we did.
I took the easier one.
I wouldn't exactly call it easier, but yeah, I'm having a wee rest now. But yeah, it's beautiful. It really is.
This stone erected in honour of Robert Drethel Taylor to King James IV, donor of the hospital in this borough, for relief of decayed tradesmen. The liberal man deviseth liberal things.
Yore in the old grey friar yield stood the hall of the 7 incorporated trades of Stirling from 1751 to 1907. And at the bottom in Latin it says tempore parendum. It means one must obey the time or one must yield to the circumstances.
Down there you can see a big stone. It looks like it's carved. From here it looks like a little bird. We don't know if we're going to go that way or keep going up the way. We don't know where all the carvings are, and we don't have time to get around it all. But if you go down that way after coming up that wee bit of hill there, it takes you down to the Smith Art Gallery.
Yep.
This used to be the site of Greyfriars Monastery, which then became the old high school in Stirling.
Yeah, the garden of the Greyfriars Monastery was on the site.
It was on this site until 1559, the monastery, and then it became
It was
Spital's-
actually the Spittal Hospital
it was
before.
Spital's Hospital
high school.
Charity, actually, even before it became the high school. And then it also gave way to an infant high school in 1907.
Oh, you sound really cool.
The wall,
Itself had a wee accident.
don't know how, but yeah.
Probably because it holds water.
Honestly, I thought I had a strange sense of humour, but my companions are.
For those of you who don't know, which probably includes many of you because I didn't know this, apparently this section of wall used to have a much more ancient structure than it does now. It was demolished around 1845, 1846, I would assume, judging by the fact that the Old Town Jail opened in 1847. But the point is that this back wall is actually part of the Old Town Jail, and the Town Council of Stirling, to say the least, was utterly furious when the ancient wall, this section of it anyway, was brought down to make room for the jail. So we didn't start.
No, it's a beautiful sunny afternoon at the moment, but if you haven't noticed, if you've been walking along, there's lots of lovely lampposts with lights on top of them, and I'm pretty sure that'll be absolutely beautiful when they're lit up at night.
It'd be like playing a game of Bloodborne, if you ask me.
Now, this building that Yak was just talking about The section of the wall has been replaced by the rear of Cowain's Hospital, which we saw in our last video. And just beyond that again is the church, the Holyrood Church and the Old Town that we also saw in our last video.
As you know, this hospital was erected by John Cowan, but of course, it even states here on this plaque that it was erected for the entertainment of decayed guild brethren, meaning old decayed tradesmen who can't look after themselves anymore.
Right, come round, go up this way, and that'll take you into the hospital and the Holyrood Church from here. Oh look, I found one of my favourite things in the world. Another two benches.
There also appears to be a deprecated headstone or memorial or plaque or something or rather, but to be truthful, none of us can tell you what it is because we're never going to read that in our lifetime.
Oh, okay, had a rest.
That was a very strugglesome get up. Ooh, I don't know if that was a hiccup or a, I don't know.
A burpee cup.
Aye. Look at the bear backing up backwards up a hill.
A backwards bear.
Oh, thanks very much.
Like,
Right, from here, behind me, you can see back down towards the King's Knot and the Queen's Knot where we started. Quite high up here.
we're playing a game of Dark Souls 3 here. At the castle.
Crazy. Oh, yeah, so it is. Like, as you get around the corner, the castle. Dark Souls 3 is a PS4 game.
What is it again? The Lords of
Cinder.
Cinder.
That's it.
Lords of Cinder.
Yes.
Got it.
And in case anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, it's a PS4 game that Aki and I have played. I'm crap at it. But these were knights, soldiers, that were brought back to basically, what were they meant to do?
The hollowed ones were
Yeah.
brought back to return the Lords of Cinder to their thrones.
That's what it was. So there's a royal theme in there somewhere. More benches. Oh, I guess it looks like a lovely viewpoint.
It is, which is why I'm going to have a seat.
Okay, then I'll have a seat. Look at that panorama. Is that not awesome? All the hills. Hills? Mountains? Roads? Oh, and this is actually above the King's Knot yet again. Right there, in the middle. And the Queen's Knot, which is that one. It's a lot flatter, but that's the Queen's Knot there.
It must have been lovely in its heyday when it was
A formal garden.
meant to be a nice garden.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's a shame that it's just grass that's on it now.
That's all that's left of it. Behind me, you can actually see this, I would imagine, is the back of the Old Town Cemetery. Excuse me, the sun's in my eyes. Which was in our previous video to this one. And you get some really interesting things to see in there. So go back and have a look at it if you haven't seen it already. When you get along here, you can go right, which will take you up to the castle, or as we're going to do, we'll continue along the back walk, right here. Third of a mile, is that a third of a mile?
Yep.
Third of a mile to Gallow Hill.
Fish. That's all I have to say about that. There's no historical information on that.
The board's been taken away, so we don't know what it is, but it looks like a fish that's been carved into this log here.
You know what that means? Fish. That's a reference for younger people that are going to get it.
Is it relative to the River Forth?
It's very possible, I would imagine. Mm-hmm.
Second carving we've seen.
Yes,
Maybe we haven't been paying enough attention, you Con.
maybe we haven't.
Oh well.
Too busy looking at the wall wetting itself.
Yeah. Cotton wool. In there. Balls of cotton wool.
That's not what cotton wool is, that's just wool.
It's sheep actually, but
As far as I know, this is the place where there are fossils beneath it.
there has been discoveries here before.
There's lots of surface level glass and stuff.
Oh, that's quite high.
What?
Startled me. Okay, somebody lurking on a bench back there.
Huh?
I don't know what it is. It looks like, I don't know if it's like a man or a woman.
A child, a dwarf, an
A
elf,
child, I don't know. A witch. The witch has got wings.
a rat with feathers.
That's true. That's actually quite cool.
That had me convinced for a second, actually, to be fair, when I first saw it. Oh, it's a man with wings strapped to his arms.
He's an angel. He's only got one boot on. His foot will be cold.
Aye, it will be. You
Uh,
can't fly, mate. No, he's got the same way sitting with wings.
strapped wings, see if he can fly. Look, got one barefoot.
So, is it an angel?
We don't know. No, it's not an angel. It's just a man who's tied feathers.
I'll bet you this is one of those from the 1800s that tried to invent flight before the Wright brothers made a plane. You know, because people used to like strap wings to themselves and try to fly like birds.
If you want to have another comparison, you could liken it to Icarus, who strapped wings on and tried to fly into the sky. They were made of wax, and when they got too close to the sun, they melted and they fell to his death.
There is a possibility. So you look at the ones they do, they're just strapped up. If you look at them.
Look, he's used like rope or string or something to strap them on. I think this is an inventor who tried to fly.
Which could be Icarus.
Icarus is a Greek mythology. Icarus is from Greek mythology, but yes, he thought that if he put wings on, he could fly up to Olympus, which is where all the other Greek gods were. But his wings were made of wax, and so when he flew up too high, the sun came out, melted his wings, and he fell into the water to his death.
Well, many a Scotsman tried to invent a wacky thing, so I'm sure many tried to invent flight.
But yeah, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, that was. But I mean, I'd imagine this is maybe, as the act says, probably just a misguided sort of inventor that thought that he could probably fly.
What I was going to say is many a Scottish inventor ended up pancaked because you can't fly unless you've got a plane, and that's why the plane's successful.
Who invented that?
The Wright brothers. Although you could say that Leonardo da Vinci invented the airplane and the Wright brothers just either copied or drew inspiration from his design or somehow convergently came up with the same thing. Da Vinci invented many a thing, including the helicopter and the modern tank and
Modern ship.
Yeah.
Long wooden ship.
Just don't hurry yourself. Like you're on a bit of a race there. I'll show some mercy to the bear.
Aye, I don't want to be sprinting backwards, Unicorn.
Be reasonable.
Right. Don't take those stairs on your right. Just go straight on over this road here.
The unicorn doesn't sound very enthused about skipping the stairs and going on an extra half an hour for us to make a round trip.
Once you've crossed the road, this brings you to the beginning of the Gallow Hill Heritage Trail.
The Heritage Trail is 10 hectares in its entirety, and Apparently during the Second World War this was kept completely clear because it was thought that an invading force would march on Stirling Castle during the escapade of the war. So it was kept clear so that the guns had a clear line of fire, and now the bear's being weird behind the camera looking like a rabbit or something. Before I was able to continue to finish to say that the army left in 1964 and now it's more like a hill than a defence.
I thought I was a woodpecker.
that would be one angry wood.
That would be one huge woodpecker, that one. Do limbo.
Danger.
Limbo.
The bear almost didn't make it.
There we go.
These are so extra. Got an obstacle course going on.
This is an obstacle course, it is, isn't it? For sure.
How will you navigate this one?
You're supposed to limbo under that one.
I'm not limboing under that one.
I'm going to cheat. Can't be done. If you'd like a bit of peace and quiet on a bench, you can come off in the path up to the right, following that top road, and take you up here to a bench and a view of suburbia.
We don't think that this is the beheading stone, so we're going to try and look somewhere else.
Hang on.
Well, there's no sign of a beheading stone other than what's been shown, but it's not in vain because there is some interesting history here about Iron Age artefacts being found on this. Belts, money, and weapons and armour, and apparently jewellery.
Plenty of seats.
Preferably not on a day like this. And on top of what I just said earlier, up until the 20th century, this hill was also used for farming, so mystery. Getting chilly.
When you get to here, we took that way, but if you want to get to the stone, go down there.
This way.
Watch, and you turn right. Going right.
Alright.
Well, here we have a couple of cannons just on the outskirts, or probably would have been at the time, facing on to the River Forth. I suppose that would have been aimed at any marauders coming up.
Yep.
By the river, coming in through wherever. And if I remember, that goes all the way out to Falkirk and out through the Firth of Forth near Edinburgh. The guns can't fire that far, obviously, but the two cannons were never active, and they were purchased in 1902.
This is the site of the macabre beheading stone, where many were executed, notably Murdoch Stewart, Duke of Albany in 1425. Murdoch was the grandson of King Robert II of Scotland, who founded the Stewart dynasty in 1389. He became Justice north of the Forth. His father died in 1420, and Stewart served as Governor of Scotland until 1424. King James I, the then uncrowned King of Scotland, was held captive in England, although James was finally ransomed and returned to Scotland. However, in 1425, soon after James's coronation, Stewart was arrested and found guilty of treason. He was executed along with two of his sons. His only surviving heir was James the Fat, who escaped to Antrim in Ireland. He died in 1429. Stuart's wife, Isabella of Lennox, survived this destruction of her family and lived to see the assassination of James I, and her title and estates were restored to her.